Welcome back to another Sunday video. No walk today, but this is an important video because I want to talk about the alts to concentrate on going forward. Since we are definitely in altcoin season, since a lot of alts are gaining more and more strength, there is something, or actually a few things to concentrate on that I think will really propel some alts upwards. And this is just beyond the usual few that I've been talking about, although they are important. But before that, let me just concentrate on this week. The biggest event for this week, obviously, is the FOMC meeting. Now, over the last few weeks, I've been covering about some of the economic data that has come out in the US, mostly around inflation, but also around jobs as well. And these are the two factors that causes the Fed to either hike or to pause or to cut, basically, right? And we've been in a holding pattern for quite some time, and we know that this coming week we will get a cut. Okay, it's baked in. We are going to get that 25 basis point cut. We're not going to get a 50, unfortunately. But it's also baked in right now that in October and December we will get another 25 basis point cut each, so overall 75 basis point cut. However, leading up to it, we may get some volatility. Last week was absolutely fantastic, and so is this weekend for crypto. So I don't know how Monday will be. I think Monday will still be okay. I think Tuesday we may turn red because people are afraid of what comes out on Wednesday. And if that happens, I expect Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to be red because of anticipation of what's going to be said, and also profit taking, because last week was just fantastic. Especially if tomorrow turns out to be a green day. However, tomorrow could be a red day as well, because last week was just fantastic. We kept breaking more and more records for S&P 500 and everything else, and obviously crypto did really well. So it would not surprise me that even Monday turns red, but I still think more likely green and then turn red. And if Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are all red, then I think Friday we actually flip back into green, and then we start really pushing forward. So far this September has been very different, right? Historically, September is a bad month, and not this month. It's not over yet, but we're like halfway through. We're more than halfway through. It's quite amazing how fast things are going. So yeah, all eyes will be on that press conference, and everyone wants to hear what Powell has to say about the upcoming rate cuts, right? And about the economy and all that stuff. So this week will be interesting leading up to it. Now, getting back to my main topic, which alts to cover. Like right now, Bitcoin has come back up 115, 116. That's great, right? But Bitcoin dominance continues to fall. And obviously, you're starting to see a turn with a lot of things. For example, if you look at the past week performance, ETH actually stalled out quite a bit. It didn't go up that much, and there's some rumors that people are a little bit more scared about ETH because of staking and regulations around that. And I don't know, the inflow for ETH wasn't good until it turned around for a few days. But prior to that, there was a lot of red. But outside of ETH, Sol definitely picked up. Sol is like 240 right now, and it continues to gain strength, right? But it got me thinking, why Sol, right? And then, I started looking at all these other coins that started gaining momentum. For example, AVAX had a huge week. People kind of missed it, but AVAX jumped up huge also. And then I looked at it. Doge had a huge week. It was like up 30% for the week. Why Doge, right? And then several others made big, impactful moves. Sui went up in a big way. Hedera went up in a big way. Cardano went up in a big way, right? So it got me thinking, what's the catalyst here? What's the connection? And I have to think that it's because of the ETFs, the pending ETFs that are coming out, right? We know that there are a lot of pending ETFs. Sol, XRP, I mentioned AVAX, Doge, Cardano, Hedera. There are a lot of pending. Chainlink. Chainlink had a good week too. So I think investors are starting to load up prior. Now, it's been rumored that things have been pushed back. So before October release, now November. But I think what investors are doing, or the whales, what they're doing is looking at the ones that have a chance of getting approval, and it could be all of them simultaneously, and they're loading up, right? That's what makes the most sense right now. So I think concentrating on the ones that are going to get, there's like pending applications and are going to get their own ETFs come November, I think they will particularly do well, or better than most. Let's just put it that way. And hint, hint, it's not too late to get into these. Most of these are still way off from their all-time high, right? With the exception of Sol, which is right, you know, it was high earlier this year around 300, so it still had to get back up there. But it did break 2021 high. So with the exception of Sol and ETH, obviously, because it did break a new high, everything else is still down vastly. Doge, even having a good week, nowhere close to 2021 high. Same thing with Hedera, Cardano, AVAX. AVAX, nowhere close. It was like, well, 120, 150 at its peak, and right now it's at 30. So a lot of you guys are holding bags, I know. And a lot of you guys have been DCing, but a lot of you guys that are new to the space or wondering what else to get, it's not too late. A lot of these are nowhere close to their previous high. So that's a good thing. A lot of people always ask me, like, how do you gauge how high something could go? Obviously, it's educated guess on all these prices. You just don't know. I don't have a magic 8-ball. But one of the things I look at is what the previous peak was in 2021, right? Now, a lot of these projects may have issued a lot more tokens, so that means the price per token or coin won't be exactly the same because it has inflated, but at least the market cap should be equal to that. So that's something else you guys got to worry about. You don't just look at the price like now versus before. You actually have to look at the market cap. Some of these are pretty close. Some are just still way off, right? And also, besides this ETF, I was looking at it last week. A lot of you guys remember that Oracle popped like 40% in a day, right? And that's because there was an announcement of some kind of storage cloud deal with OpenAI, like a 300 million or billion, something huge. That's what made Oracle pop. It made Larry Ellison the richest man on the planet for a brief moment. But you know what else popped right after that? WorldCoin did. The project founded by Sam Altman, right? Some other company announced that they were going to start stocking up WorldCoin. So I guess the other thing to pay attention to is how some of these coins may relate to Web2 companies and big announcements around them, because it makes sense. Look at how hot OpenAI is and how hot AI is in general, right? And we haven't, up until like last week, WorldCoin was still quite down. No movements at all. But you got to figure, if everyone loves Sam Altman, they're going to try to invest into his next big projects. And it could be WorldCoin, right? Imagine if Sam all of a sudden said that he was going to incorporate WorldCoin into OpenAI in some manner. Right now, they're totally separate. But what if one day he just announces that, right? That would send WorldCoin up by like 10x, at least within a week. So, and I saw WorldCoin's up like 50% in the week. So I think also going forward, it's very important to concentrate on projects that are connected in some way to Web2 projects. WorldCoin being one of them. It's a controversial project. It scans people's, ID. Basically, it takes, you could scan your eyes with this orb, and basically it verifies whether or not you're human or not, because of the increasing amount of AI out there. And you figured this kind of utility would actually tie into OpenAI quite easily. So But besides this, I think riding the AI wave going to be important. And how can he do that? Well, look at how hot NVIDIA is also, right? The two hottest AI companies I know of is OpenAI and NVIDIA. Of course, there's others like Palantir and like now Oracle and others, but NVIDIA is not going to be stopped. So what's the best way to take advantage of that? Well, there are some projects that are partnered with NVIDIA, but I think what's more important is DePIN projects. DePIN projects that figure out how to utilize NVIDIA's infrastructure and hardware to accelerate AI development in some capacity, right? They're probably going to be lifted up. And somehow, if that project is connected to some big Web2 company out there, or people kind of associate that there may be some kind of partnership in the future, that project is going to skyrocket, right? So I don't know any off the top of my head. There are a few that's out there. Then, you know, it could be big. It could be absolutely big. Off the top of my head, I just thought of it. The small one that I am part of is Axon, right? They're in decentralized finance, and they have their own. They have their own compute layer. They have their own storage layer. They have their own data layer, basically, to try to evolve science utilizing NVIDIA hardware. So that is an example, right? And now that I think of it, they did very well last week, and probably because of the Oracle thing. And there are others in the space that also utilizes NVIDIA hardware and software and partnered up with them, and they could do really well as well, right? So you gotta do some research. You gotta do some digging and see which ones make sense. And sometimes they may not be pumping right away, and then they do because you may be the first to figure it out, and then others figure it out, and then they jump in afterwards, right? So that's where research actually comes in. But there are a lot of DePIN projects out there that are involved with that. I'm just trying to think. Like some oldies from the past, like Render is one of them. I know Flux is another one. Akash is another one. These are like more traditional, just 3D rendering or just compute layers. But there's a lot of new ones too. Anyways, I'm going to end this video with that. I'm going to start concentrating more on some of these specific projects that obviously are going to get their own ETFs, and ones that tie into AI, whether it's OpenAI / ChatGPT or other facets of AI that could be tied to NVIDIA and just DePIN overall, right? I think it is the one sector that's going to do very well this cycle. And we only got a couple more months until the supposed top, right? We'll see. We'll see. All right, guys, smash it a like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow, bright and early, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right? Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.